Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to this Ask the Expert session. It's a continuation of Breakout 203. I'm going to take a few moments to introduce our session and explain how to interact with our SMEs, and we will go from there. Please use the Q&A chat box to ask your questions. We will be moderating the questions and answering verbally and over chat. The session is being recorded on the Microsoft side and will be available on demand post-Ignite. Please help our moderators by not spamming the chat. You can thumbs up the questions that you see that you really want to see answered, and we'll put those up in the queue. Lastly, we do ask that you adhere to the Microsoft Code of Conduct, which is posted in the chat and on the slide as well. And with that, I will hand it over to to get us started.
Yeah, welcome everyone, and thanks for joining following Emily Ho's session regarding Dynamics 365 and Microsoft 365. We've announced some further integration as we continue to build the integration with Dynamics 365 and Teams, and now we've extended across Office. So what we've joined today, I'm on the cross-product marketing team for business applications, and I'm joined by Michael and Eric. Michael, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Keith. My name is Michael Tan. I'm a principal product manager within the Dynamics 365 for Sales application team. We drive a lot of the Teams integration work, not just for sales, but for the benefit of other Dynamics applications. A lot of what was seen today in various sessions regarding Context IQ and how we integrate Dynamics into Teams and Office, both in terms of bringing Teams and collaboration capabilities into Dynamics, but also in terms of the collaboration capabilities or the ability to collaborate around Dynamics records that we're driving forward into Teams and Office. A lot of that's driven by our team. So really happy to talk to everybody today.
And Eric, how about you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Eric Bucock. I am a principal program manager on the Dynamics 365 organization as well. I am specifically in the growth team, so I work with a lot of our internal teams around driving growth and scaling our technology. And right now, working heavily with Michael, really trying to scale these efforts around collab so we can get the most impact and help our customers leverage this technology to the best of their ability.
That's great. As you can see, we've got two experts on the engineering side that can help answer your questions following the session that just took place. As Michael highlighted, we announced Context IQ. You might have seen that in Jared Spataro's session, as well as Alyssa and Charles Lamana's hyper-connected business session. We're really extending the way that you can integrate your application so you can collaborate in the context and stay within your application that you're using most effectively. And that's what we're really trying to do with Context IQ, whether it's being able to search for records, be able to link Dynamics 365 records right into an Outlook message, an @ mention in Outlook. I mean, we're really trying to extend the collaboration. So, open to any questions, from the engineering perspective, from the two principals that are really driving some of the engagement that we announced today. So let's see, we got some questions coming in.
Should I just handle some of these live, Keith?
Yeah, let's just do that.
So I'll start with wanting to see here from Mark. So we basically, it's a licensing question regarding kind of what was seen today within the Context IQ kind of a set of announcements. So generally speaking, most of what you saw today here was, and granted, I'll speak kind of in generalities because there were a lot of things shown here and I don't want to kind of overpromise things, but generally speaking, the way that we're looking at a lot of these integration capabilities between Dynamics, Teams, and Office are part of the enterprise SKU plan that you would have with any CE application. There are certain things that we have, such as like conversational intelligence that might have been shown in some of the sessions, or that were shown in some of the sessions, that would be part of the sales premium SKU, as kind of formally known as sales insights. But generally speaking, a lot of that will be covered in a full enterprise license to those Dynamics products where it was shown within. So hopefully that answers that one. I'll go to the first one from Norm in regards to loops. So loops is a new kind of term that has been kind of introduced here at Ignite. We did talk about it in the context of showing Dynamics data inside loops. The reality is that it's a more of an open framework that over time you'll start to see a lot of other, even third-party data kind of being exposed within a loop. It's meant to be almost similar in vein to, if you're familiar with adaptive cards, and that being kind of a universal framework for sharing data between applications. That's kind of the same set of principles with loops. And so, in terms of which data shows up, how it shows up, there's a lot of flexibility in that system. I think the way that the Office and teams wanted to show that off first was through representing Dynamics data and representing that through specifically Dynamics data, but over time that's meant to be more of an open system. And I believe in Jared's session, if I caught it correctly, they did showing like SAP data rendered through some of those same loop frameworks that was shown for Dynamics.
I see a question on when will some of these new capabilities be available. There was a lot of new capabilities that we announced today. I mean, I would recommend going out to the Dynamics 365 blog, where we have all the information of when the different capabilities will be coming to preview or are available today. So if you have a specific question on one of the capabilities, we're happy to go through that. But the blog that Emily penned today really goes into a lot of those details that can provide you the specifics of timing of when these capabilities will be coming to market.
I'll jump in and ask or answer a couple other questions I see in there that are maybe somewhat easy to answer quickly. The question from Kelly regarding GCC support, high cloud support, like it's on our roadmap. We won't be supporting these initially, and so kind of at the first release, we won't have GCC support, but it is kind of on the roadmap for 2022. I can't pinpoint dates, and each feature that was shown today will probably have its own kind of roadmap for when it can support GCC. But so it's kind of all I can say. I can't really specify dates, but it's on the roadmap and hopefully slated for later in 2022. There's a question, how will the Teams chat be integrated with the timeline, if I understand that question correctly? So it's something that we're working towards. So obviously the timeline is kind of a common construct for a lot of the activity that takes place against a record. Emails and calling are kind of similar constructs that are all captured as a history on the timeline. We're working through how we integrate with the timeline. When we launch the embedded Teams chat system, it'll kind of basically function separate from the timeline. So it does get exposed as a chat list on the right side panel. And the chat windows pop up and you can see those kind of in the context of the record. We're working through a model for kind of how we would integrate that with the timeline, including things like how do we handle privacy within the embedded Teams chat system. It's really reserved, the people that have access to a chat are the people that are inside that chat, and the timeline is a construct that's really open for other people in record. So those are things we're working through, but I think we should be launching the first elements of how we would integrate probably in the Q1 timeframe of next calendar year. Let's see, I don't know if Eric or Keith, you want to jump in on any of these other questions? I'm just kind of looking through here.
Yeah, I think I'll jump in. There was one I was just looking at and I was trying to get some clarity, but it was about kind of the context of if like a call is coming in, about bringing the record in context for an incoming interaction. And I think it's maybe a little bit more to some of our team's calling capabilities. You know, I think this is there is some upcoming. I think what we're announcing right now is the outbound calling and conversation intelligence, which you might have seen some. Actually, I don't know if we highlighted a little bit today. There will be a lot of that covered in the keynote tomorrow about the outbound calling and conversation intelligence capabilities. One of the new capabilities for the calling side is incoming calling that is going to be coming in in a few months from now in this wave, where incoming calling will bring some of this context to identify a record and help the user switch that context for the incoming call. I think that message was posted from Tim.
I'll tackle a couple other ones here. Thanks, Eric. Let's see here. A lot of questions coming through. I just lost the ones I was going to answer. There's a question from Mark regarding loops. Basically, a question around whether the dynamic in a loop card or a loop it was dynamic. It is. No pun intended on the dynamic comment there, but these are meant to be live, rich data, components effectively, and whether that's kind of in a what's known as an adaptive card, or kind of now what's kind of more referred to as like a loop component that has more of kind of the rich fluid framework embedded within that. These are meant to be live, and also in how they'll be implemented as well. They'll be implemented through kind of role-based views, and so within a given chat or a channel, there could be a number of people on there that not all have the same set of permissions to see the information for a record. And so different people will see different things based on their kind of permissions and access to that data. Let's see, there's another question here.
Yeah, I see a question on, when can we expect Teams chat for project operations? We extend the integration. We highlighted a few scenarios in Emily's session around sales, customer service, and marketing, and we continue to extend across the Dynamics 365 apps. We've already got integration with commerce, with HR, Business Central. We have integration, so we can just continue for each release right now. So project operations will definitely be part of the the ever increasing way that we expand the collaboration. So I would say just keep on watching for updates, because we're really trying to connect all the Dynamics 365 apps and have that tight integration with collaboration, and we just continue to extend all the capabilities.
Yeah, I think that's correct. Just to add to that, because I see another question from Matthew on SCM and finance. So I mean, Keith's correct. What you're seeing today, we would initially kind of launch with primarily with like sales and service, kind of the first ones out the door, but our intent is to extend these capabilities to other Dynamics applications. The next kind of wave out, so to speak, would be other applications that are on Dataverse. So like supply chain management would likely come before finance, just by nature of kind of the underlying platform stack that supports those. We are working with the team behind supply chain management. I don't want to kind of overcommit dates, but that is something that we are working towards and trying to land that in H1 calendar year 2022.
Hey, Michael, I saw one I was just reading. I think it just popped away, and there's another one here that's talking about context IQ with Dataverse apps or Power Apps, or anything from kind of the continuation of what's support, or what would that look like on the Power App side?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same comment I just made. So we are working with the Power Apps team to kind of also figure out for each of the features that we have, like what's the roadmap, and on our side, what are the resources required to support and extend this more broadly? Where do we think the biggest kind of opportunity is, and also are there any material differences from a experience perspective that we have to identify before we extend it? I think embedded Teams chat would be the one that would probably be kind of like the first one for us to tackle with the Power Apps team, and we have conversations going about that actually now, this morning in fact, and so we're working towards that. That's on the roadmap as well.
Hey, Michael, here's an interesting one. It's from Mark. What kind of customizations do you need to show Dynamics 365 CE data and other applications with Loop? So it's really more of a loop. It's an enablement of how do we light up that enablement between the modern work applications, not necessarily from a customization perspective.
Yeah, so there's a few ways to answer that, and Loop represents kind of a few things, multiple things that we'll be releasing over the next kind of 6 to 8 months. The first thing that'll release in kind of Q1 of next calendar year would be kind of more loops in the form of adaptive cards sent via like Teams message extensions. I don't know if you're familiar with message extensions, but it's kind of a simple way to search for and share records in a chat or a channel. Those are effectively kind of becoming known as loops, and the customization is very light. We just have a light set of configurations in the admin settings to effectively select which entities you would want to kind of have shared. We pull from Quick Find View, and so the record information that shows up in the card is automatically set by your Quick Find View settings, which is already probably customized and optimized today for those given entities. And then some of the deeper kind of like richer kind of experiences you saw today in some of the videos around having like a full kind of like opportunity form show up in a loop card. Those are we'll provide more details as we get closer to shipping that, which will be more so later in 2022. But we'll effectively be establishing a separate form to kind of that's optimized for that experience. So that's the kind of customization that would probably come into play, would be to say, hey, when I want to render this kind of form into into a Teams canvas or an Outlook canvas, the customization of which fields you want to kind of establish as the priority ones to show, the assembly of that data, et cetera, would be what's customized. But we're trying to make that fairly straightforward and trying to dock those things into kind of existing known frameworks that our customers use today.
I say a question like, does the recipient of an email with a loop card need to have a Dynamics 365 license? And
yeah, it's a good question. I don't, Keith, do you want to answer this one? We were chatting on this one. This is kind of connected to a previous announcement we've made. I don't know if you want to address this, or I can attempt to.
Yeah, no, I mean, so the recipient doesn't need to have a Dynamics 365 license. So they'll be able to view and have limited write access, but will have some write access to that. So they can read and limited write. So that, that's, and Michael, you can, if you want to add to that, but like to answer the question, no, they don't need a Dynamics 365 license to be their recipient, but you just won't have, full access. You'll be able to have some limited, rights.
Yeah, and just to add to that, so what Keith is referring to is actually part of what we announced at Inspire when we talked about kind of effectively extending what's kind of known as like a team member license rights to everybody in the organization if they were to engage through Teams or M365 really. And so that's really kind of our push to really kind of establish kind of this cross-organizational collaboration kind of system that is not bound by license restrictions. Now, to what Keith said is important. It's like, hey, this doesn't mean everybody has editing rights to it, and also it doesn't mean that we're just kind of opening up access to all the Dynamics information across the organization. That's going to be beyond the security controls and permissions that many organizations want to set. And so there will still be the ability that you have today within Dynamics to restrict, who has access to which records, but we're trying to kind of like unencumber Dynamics license as part of that process. And so that is something that we are kind of rolling out to kind of like be more, I would say, kind of like proactive to really kind of like drive this kind of crossover collaboration across teams and Office. There are a lot of questions in here. I'm almost getting
Yeah, I'm trying to do some text responses as well.
I'm trying to find ones that are fairly easy to answer that don't have too many like dependencies of how I answer them. Is the Teams integration meant to replace Omnichannel? No. I think from a customer service perspective, there's a strong intent for some of the chat capabilities that exist within Omnichannel, more for kind of agent interactions, and so we don't have an intent to replace those. I don't know that there's representatives on the customer service side here, but I feel like I'm not incorrect in stating that on their behalf. Let's see here. Can we use Teams with D365 now? So the embedded Teams chat that was shown in several sessions and we've shown in the past, that is actually launching and available to all regions on actually this Friday. Hit the Europe and Middle East and Africa kind of regions over the weekend, and hitting North America on Friday. And so we'll be in a full worldwide public preview as of this Friday. The other features that are shown will have kind of different stages within through H1 for when they'll be released. I'm trying to look through. Let's see. Trying to, let's see here.
And there's one more just reiterating Context IQ and Power Apps Dataverse. So basically right now it's immediately Dynamics 365 enterprise apps. I think we've started with sales and service and potentially more to follow. Yeah. Correct, Michael?
Yes. Yeah, there's a question from Stefan here. Are you expecting to update or replace Dynamics 365 activities features with tools like to-do list, Outlook, email booking? It's a good question. I don't know that we're, in a wholesale kind of type of strategy at this stage, trying to kind of replace the functions of activities. I think it's more so an opportunity to have better integration with our first party offerings where those capabilities exist. So like to-do, list, I mean, obviously very similar to tasks. I think we would look over time to figure out what's the right integration model for those. I think a lot of the value is trying to find ways in which there's like a strong entity mapping between these systems. So like within the embedded Teams chat system today, it's about embedding a chat with a record, so that not only do we have the context to surface those within Dynamics, but we have the context of the record when somebody interacts with that application on that side. And so I think that'll be kind of a principle that we use broadly in the future. Let's see here. Sorry. The last question, is there a plan for Dynamics 365 modern UI? Yeah, I think there is work underway to modernize particularly some of the workspaces that we have within Dynamics. We are built on UCI, the Unified Communications Interface from our platform team, that's kind of driving the model-driven apps kind of experience for both Power Apps and Dynamics. There are certain workspaces that we built, such as Deal Manager that released to preview earlier this calendar year, that I think have maybe more of the modern kind of UI that you might be referring to, Senthil. Let's see here.
I think we have time for one last question. I don't know, if Michael, if you want to. There's a couple.
There are a couple questions on security. I'll just say we're not trying to, we're trying to be respectful of how security and permissions is structured here. I don't think we're trying to kind of reinvent anything as it relates to security and roles and permissions. I think Dynamics admins would kind of have the same level of control over who can see what on records, irrespective of where they show up. So I'll kind of make that comment that hopefully maybe addresses some of what I saw in the chat. There's also a question on, does that mean you don't need team member licenses anymore? That's not necessarily true. A lot of the team member license activity is accessing a team member app, a separate app outside of the context of Teams and in this case Outlook. And so there will still be a need for team member licenses. They'll still have its role, but we are trying to kind of, extend some of that functionality to people that have a M365 license in the organization.
Yeah, and the customization elements
Yep.
that would
Yep.
need the Teams member license. So it's a critical piece for team members. So I think we're good on the question. I think we answered a lot that we've sort of highlighted. Hopefully we've answered most of your questions. As I highlighted before, there was a blog that went out this morning from Emily on the Dynamics 365 blog property. Please go out there if you want to find availability dates and just sort of information on all the different capabilities that were highlighted in the session. We also have a Dynamics 365 in Teams webpage, which will give you some high-level information and just sort of show where we're going across all the apps connected with Teams. So really appreciate your time today, and always open to answer questions. And thanks again to Eric and Michael for joining us, that have really sort of been deep diving on all these capabilities over the last few months and driving it from the engineering side. So thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.